Hey there, Sooner football fans. Welcome to another edition of the OU Insider Post-Practice Blitz. Parker Thune alongside Brandon Drumm. We spoke to Brent Venables earlier today. The Oklahoma head ball coach faced some tough questions. One very tough question in particular in the aftermath of what was a very ugly 16-12 win over Houston on Saturday. We all know how ugly it was. We've spent plenty of time talking about it. But Brandon, it was the great Barry Trammell that posed a very blunt question to Brent Venables pretty early on in the press
Yeah.
conference. And you know what? Let's actually just play the clip. This was the full question and response.
Yeah, apart from injuries, Brent, how did the offense become so alarming so fast? Or maybe it didn't come fast. Maybe you saw potential problems, but I don't think anybody saw an offense that could score one touchdown on Houston on a drive longer than 10 yards.
Aside from the injuries, well, I mean, so you're saying your best players aren't available, and so now what?
Maybe it is. If it is injuries, that's fine too. Yeah.
I don't really know how to answer the question. I mean, other than the obvious. I mean, there's the reason the ones are a one, and the twos are twos, and the threes are a three, and then again, there's a thing called chemistry and cohesion and timing and working together, and when you don't have your best ability is your availability when you don't have guys available. So you got to get the next guys ready. Well, again, if as you know, when you've had several guys, maybe it's a Jaden Gibson who's taken the majority of the snaps all the way through summer and fall camp, and then all of a sudden he's out. Well, then the next guy didn't take as many reps, so he doesn't have that the experience or the reps. So you got to expeditiously, without wearing guys out, get them, the development, the repetitions that they need for the development piece. So, there's, a thing called experience. There's a thing, called, again, injuries. Those are real things. And then when you have it all happen at once, just is what it is. So they'll get better the more we play and keep the same lineup. This is a group of guys that are committed to the work, the things that it takes. May not happen as fast as everyone would like, but it'll get better.
So basically, what you hear the head ball coach doing there, Brandon, is illustrating a trickle-down effect. Naturally, when your best players aren't on the field, that's going to create a crunch. But where things get challenging is especially when you look at the wide receiver room and you have four of your top five guys that are either not available or certainly not at 100% quite yet.
Mm-hmm.
When you have to go that far down the depth chart and continually be getting new guys ready, and then another crop of new guys ready, when you have Jalil Farouk go down in week one with a fractured foot, you're having to borrow the word that Venables used, expeditiously get guys accustomed to the demands of
Yep.
playing first team offense when that's not something that they've done all spring or all fall.
No, and we've had to answer all these questions on OU Insider VIP. We've had to answer these questions, whether it was our live the other night, we had to answer this question, whether it was on Twitter, right? Everybody wants to know. I thought this wide receiver unit, I thought this offensive line unit was going to have 6, 7, 8 guys that you were going to be able to rely on, blah, blah, blah. But what we have also said leading up to that was, well, if worst goes to worst and those guys all go down, yeah, you're kind of screwed because that's where the inexperience lies. That's where the guys that don't have first team reps, that don't have a rapport, not just with Jackson Arnold, but with each other, with the rest of the team across the board. You're essentially starting over from scratch and then going out and having to play a game with newbies across the board. And whether you want to believe it, once you get down to those third and fourth string guys, it doesn't matter if it's Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State. I'm trying to think of all the other really good Georgia. Those third and fourth string guys probably equal to the first string guys out of Houston, out of Tulane. So you've essentially equaled out the playing field of what you thought was something you had an upper hand on, which was talent, experience, ability. No, you don't. Well, and maybe the talent is better.
Yeah.
But experience beats talent every time. It just does. Smart beats just straight athleticism. That's what they're having to deal with right now. And when you got a brand new quarterback out there, BV said it right. I want your take on this. He said, because the question was asked about Clemson too, right? Like, what's the difference between Clemson and Trevor Lawrence and Jackson Arnold? And he went into like this diatribe over, all the experience and smart play that they had around him, which I thought was a little belittling towards his players. But
Well,
it's true. It's
yes,
true
it's
though.
true. Like we can all look at objective reality and see it for what it is, right? The
Yeah.
environment that Jackson Arnold is having to deal with is certainly not an environment that is conducive to the growth and flourishing of a young quarterback that is still as inexperienced as Jackson Arnold. And that's not to make
Mhm.
excuses for him. He does need to play better, but certainly the circumstances around him are doing him no favors right now, no
No.
favors whatsoever. And one of the things that I've seen circulating on the message boards, on social media, on the internet at large, right, is, well, but the coaches talked all offseason about competitive depth, right? Yeah, and that's all fine and well, but competitive depth doesn't always mean, yeah, your fourth string center is going to be able to step in and be a stud. That's
No.
still asking a lot. Brandon, competitive depth generally means, as I
First, second
understand it,
string.
and as it's intended to be communicated, you have first string dudes who are dudes, and you have a bunch of second string guys that if their number gets called or they need to come on the field for spot duty, they're going to be able to perform at a high level as well. It does not mean that when you lose four of your five top receivers, oh, no matter, the passing attack is going to keep cooking just like it's always been cooking at the University of Oklahoma.
No, this totally reminds me. I don't. Do you remember the 2009 season with Landry Jones in his
Boy,
second
do
year?
I. Yeah, Trent Williams was playing center by the end of that year.
Correct. It was awful as far as just injuries across the board, and it was awful as far as injuries at wide receiver. They were dropping passes. What you're seeing now is what you saw in 2009. Now, that team obviously ended up being, I think it was 8-5 at the end of the year, but they were down the road. They were better for this. And I think that's something fans, I know it sucks right now. I know it sucks. Down the line, you guys are going to be so thankful that these bumps in the roads happened, because it's only going to make them better for 20. I know 24, it's not going to be pleasant at times if it continues down this route, but 25, 26, 27, you're going to look back at this and go, they're good because they got all this experience, because they were forced into action as freshmen. Therefore, you're going to see a jump in play down the line. Now, again, if it's going to continue to do this now, I mean, Parker, it could be a long season. It could be a long season, a
It could
season
be
we were not expecting.
well, no, certainly. But if they get healthy, I think a
Yeah,
lot of the potential that we all
changes.
saw before the
Yep.
season is very much still there.
Yes.
And I I don't think it's fair to hold anything against the coaches right now. That's a conversation that can stay on the shelf for a few more weeks, especially once
Mhm.
we get a sense of what this team looks like in SEC play, because it is on the coaches to compensate for whatever shortcomings this team has, whatever bumps in the road arise. But by the same token, if Texas loses Silas Bolden and Isaiah Bond and Matthew Golden tomorrow, you're licking your chops going into the Cotton Bowl, right? You're
Yeah,
thinking there's no way Texas can overcome that, because personnel matters. Having your
it
best
does.
players on the field, that matters. And that probably matters more than anything at this level. When you're playing in the SEC, you need to have your top dudes available and at the top of their game. Now, with that said, looking ahead to this weekend against Tulane, Brent Venables
Mhm.
was non-committal on the status of Branson Hickman as well as Nick Anderson. What do you think the play is there? You let him go this week, or
You
do you
have
wait till
to.
Tennessee?
You, you have to get Anderson out there. You have to. He's got to get. I don't know how much he has to play or can play, but if he can play, let's say 30 plays, then get him 30 plays. Get him 30 plays. Get him some in-game experience for this year with Jackson. At least give them some confidence with each other. And at the very least, what that can do is if you can make some big plays with Nick Anderson, it's going to essentially allow Deion Burks to not be bracketed. You're going to be forced to now have to cover Nick Anderson. I don't know that they're going to worry too much about Nick Anderson if and that may work in OU's favor. I don't know. If Tennessee sees him just trot out there for the first time for the game. They know what he can be, but I mean, where is he health wise? You know what I mean? Like, I think that's kind of the big question with Branson Hickman. I don't know. If you can get away with not playing him, don't do it. But
Can
I
you
don't
get
know
away
that
with
you
not playing
can.
him? Yeah, exactly. No, that's
I
the
don't know
big
if you
question.
can.
And the other question to me too, and this is maybe something that hasn't gotten talked about enough coming out of last Saturday, is where's Andrell Anthony at? Because he didn't play Saturday against Houston. We saw him play in the opener. He caught a couple passes, looked fine in the opener. Didn't really get the sense that there was anything to worry about there. And then he doesn't see the field at all against Houston. So, yeah, I
Maybe
get
some
the
swelling a little bit
yeah, the
as they come
fixation is
back.
on
Yeah.
Nick Anderson's status right now, but I would
Yeah.
argue that of close to equal importance is getting Andrew Anthony back up to speed.
Yeah.
Because let's not forget, and hopefully we haven't forgotten the dude that he was for the first half of the 2023 season for Oklahoma. That was a game changer.
But he's a stud. He was fast. He was a stud. And look, you're coming up on that 1 year, right, marker that most people coming back from ACLs, that's kind of where they hit that switch and become their old self. So hopefully here within the next week, 2-3 weeks, that you get the sense that Andrew Anthony becomes that guy. Because if you can try it out, Nick Anderson, healthy, a revised Andrew Anthony, and obviously a Deion Burks with the tight ends that they have and the running backs that they have, you should be okay. Like as Jackson Arnold should feel way more comfortable than he does right now, because right now he looks and he's staring at Deion Burks all the time going, please, dear Lord, get open. Please, dear Lord, get open. And he doesn't. He trusts his tight ends, but I don't think he trusts anybody else right now. And can
Yeah.
you blame him? Brennan Thompson's dropped how many passes already this season? It's
He's
been
dropped a
rough.
couple. Yep. Zion Reagans has dropped a couple.
Yep.
JJ
And
Hester has dropped a couple.
JJ Hester. Yep.
Drops have played this wide receiver core. But again,
Yep.
that goes back to Venables' point, which is you're having to push guys into situations, into scenarios, into roles that you didn't anticipate having to push them into at the outset. Another
Yep.
interesting aspect of all of this is that the word is Troy Everett is getting close.
Yes.
And getting Troy Everett back would be big for this program, because what that would theoretically enable you to do, Brandon, and you tell me if this is a significant net positive for Oklahoma, if you got Branson Hickman playing center, ideally, and you can throw Troy Everett in there at left guard, that then allows you to slide Jacob Sexton out to left tackle and slide Tarquin over to the right side.
It's a net positive no matter how you look at it, because what you just said is a huge net positive, but it's also a huge net positive if Hickman can't go and you can throw Troy Everett in there at center.
Yep.
That is massive to have him back. Now your offensive line starts to have, you don't have to worry about Jacob Sexton making all the calls and it having to be relayed all the way down. You have somebody directly in the center of the offense that understands it, has the mental capacity to make the calls, slide the protections, call out the blitzes, call out, whatever they're going to do, right? To both sides of the line, instead of Jacob Sexton having to move his head like this and like yell down the line and all this type of stuff in a loud environment. It's not conducive for a great communication, right? Like it's just not. So that helps out significantly no matter how you look at it. So if they have just by chance have Troy Everett back this week, and we don't know that that's going to happen. But if that happens, I think the offensive line changes significantly, Parker. I think you're looking at a way better offensive line just in general, because you actually have somebody that everybody trusts. Like they trust him. He was the dude last year, right? Like that's your guy. That's your center. That's who you trust. And if not, if Hickman comes back and you got Everett and you can play Tarquin and Sexton at the tackles, that's such a huge win. And you get to chill out by having not having to play Jake Taylor.
Yeah.
While until and let him heal up.
Which he needs
That's
to do.
huge.
He needs to do. He probably doesn't need to be playing right now. And we know that Garen Hatchett is now on the shelf for the season after undergoing bicep surgery. We saw a little bit of Logan Howland on Saturday night. He was solid. Quite frankly, performed better than I expected as a redshirt freshman, seeing
BV
his
talked him up. Yeah.
first meaningful action of his collegiate career on Saturday night. So maybe Howland continues to emerge and proves on the practice field that he's worthy of consideration as one of those starting tackles moving forward. And boy, what a huge lift that would be if you have another guy that you can count on at tackle. That's it for
100.
this.
Just real quick, do you think they play EPL this week? Because BV just randomly brought him up.
Now, that was the other thing. I'm glad I almost neglected to mention that, but Brent Venables did give the indication that they would like to have Eddie Pierre-Louis as an option, which doesn't really seem like he is right this second, but they're optimistic that he can get there, which makes sense, right? He's a true freshman. He got here in June. He's learning on the fly. There's a lot to digest in that span of time on such a condensed timetable, but we know how athletic he is. We know how nasty he plays. Physically, it's there, right? As long as it's there mentally, he can be an asset for this program in 2024. He's kind of the one guy in that freshman class that does have what it takes to make an immediate impact. Now, jury's still out, and it's a very tough thing to work yourself into position as a true freshman on the offensive line to be able to make a dent. But if there's one member of that freshman class that can do it, it would seem to be EPL. So I don't think anybody should have the expectation that that's your next Caden Green. You know, that's the guy who gets thrown in the fire mid-season and stabilizes everything from there on out. But certainly, if he can give you another reliable option at guard, again, I think the biggest area in which that helps you is that it allows you to put Jacob Sexton where he belongs, which is left tackle.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think that would be just a huge deal. His athleticism, his size, his strength. Just he has to understand it mentally. I think that's the biggest thing with Bill Bedenbaugh is the mental part more than anything else. So we'll see. I think that'll be interesting to see if he actually gets out there and plays. And if he does do well, that's another little, crumb in your pocket that you get to go into Tennessee with. And you need all the crumbs you can get right now.
Despite the pump fake that I threw you all, this now officially marks the end of the post-practice blitz here on the OUinsider.com YouTube channel. That is Brandon Drumm. I am Parker Thune. We hope to see you over on OUinsider.com, where you can subscribe for full message board access and access to a wealth of inside team and recruiting information throughout the season. Trust me, folks, OUinsider.com is the place to be. We will and do make it worth your while to be part of the community over there. So until next week, this has been the Post Practice Blitz, and this is OU Insider. Take it easy, everybody.